Hi, it's you and Ellery here making bonsai in Australia, and in this video I'm going to be making my new Feijoa Bonsai. I hope I pronounced that right. There isn't a lot of research out there on Feijoa, especially in terms of them being used as bonsai. So basically what I'm going off is some of the information which is accessible online, and it's basically along the same lines as what a Guava Bonsai is like. So they're like a fairly adequate amount of sunlight, they're like good drainage soil, and yeah, the backbiting on them is quite good. So I had actually bought one of my guava from my last video that I did make, just to give you a little bit of an update on it. But you can see with this guava that there's been a lot of backbiting on it, and there's been a bunch of other branches backbite on this too, which I've actually rubbed off. But yeah, quite significant backbite onto the hard wood or the old wood. So yeah, the backbiting is quite good on this species of tree. It might be slightly different for the Feijoa compared to the guava, but it's definitely evident, and I can see from quite a bit of the branch structure here that there is a fair bit of backbite on the Feijoa as well. So yeah, we'll see how we go. First thing I'm going to do is start to remove some of this soil and rake back the soil on the roots so that I can see what I'm actually working with. So just going to pull it out of the soil that it's in. And yeah, I'm not sure how common the Feijoa is in other parts of the world, but I've definitely come across it a fair bit in Australia. A lot of people grow it in their yards because it does grow quite well in the Australian kind of environment. So just raking the soil from around roots here, raking it radially. Now the guava, now I know this is Feijoa, but I'm going to keep kind of comparing it to the guava because they are quite similar. But the guava that I had, resources that I'd looked at online suggested pruning realistically no more than, I think it was about 30% of the root base. But I pruned that, and I pruned that kind of quite early on. It was I think it was only about halfway through winter that I really pruned and then root pruned my guava when I turned that into a bonsai, and I actually ended up root pruning it quite drastically, but it did really well. So and it's come back. There hasn't been, like, none of the branches have died off. It's been quite healthy since I pruned it. So I'm going to act under the assumption that I can prune and root prune this quite significantly also. I actually have quite an interesting root structure on this tree. It's really clumpy and kind of swivelly. I'm not sure how to describe it, but I haven't previously done this with my bonsai, but what I'm going to do is try and rinse off a lot of the soil from these roots, just so I can really see what I'm actually dealing with here. The other advantage of rinsing off, or at least eliminating the most amount of soil from around the roots as you can, is that it allows you to make sure that you've got the same soil in and around the roots as you do in the rest of the pot, just so you've got a really consistent kind of really consistent soil, which means that instead of were I to use just my standard nursery soil around the roots and then my bonsai soil further around the bonsai, the problem with that is that you will end up having what's around the roots getting really waterlogged because it doesn't have a lot of good drainage, so that's a lot more moist, and then the rest of the soil will dry out a lot quicker. So you end up with just this just a position between what you've got around the roots and then what you've got in the rest of the pot. So part of the roots might get kind of root rot, and then some of the other parts of the roots might be a little bit too dry. So I prefer to, I'd just rather to keep a little bit more consistent there. So I've got the majority of that soil away from my roots now, so I can really start to see what I'm dealing with here. And you can see that there's a really interesting kind of quite interesting twist and shape in the trunk down there, where it's, I guess that's realistically what was submerged, part of the root. And I really want to keep that in the low part of the bonsai, the start of the trunk. So I'll probably keep it submerged to somewhere around here and have these as some of the first roots. So just start to prune off some of these higher roots, which are a little bit too high for my liking. And you can see for such a small tree it really has quite a large root system, so it should survive this quite well. Then there's a really thick root that kind of comes out the bottom there, which I really don't want so much. Probably going to get rid of quite a lot of the root mass by pruning that off, but just really raking it back just so I can start to form a really nice radial root system in the barry. Alright, so now we've got the roots done. Now I've also got all these little branches which are starting to come up just above where I've got that really nice twist in the trunk, and I really don't actually want them there longer term. But for now I think I'll keep them just as just as a sacrificial style branches. I really like this branch because it's got quite a nice twist to it, but I think I'm going to get rid of this other branch which is coming out right behind it and kind of comes up very straight. And I think I'm going to directionally prune this main branch. I just want it to kind of see how it's got that twist there. What I really want is for a branch to shoot out from the bottom of this leaf, just to really keep that twist going and kind of concave it back in, but we'll see how we go. Based on the rest of what I've seen of this type of tree, they really backbud quite well, so let's hope it stays that way. And I'll prune that back as well. Alright, so I'm not going to prune off too many of the branches for now. I kind of want some of those branches to really start growing. I'm not going to prune it back too severely. They're really small branches at this point, so it's not going to make too much of a difference. And yeah, hopefully get a lot more vigor, really help it establish itself really quickly, especially after such a severe root pruning. And yeah, we'll see how we go from there. So I'll find a pot, get some soil, and see what we've got. So I've got two pots here that I can choose between, which they're both a fairly good size for the little guy. I think I'm going to put it in the in this brown pot. I think it kind of matches just the abstract nature of that trunk. It kind of suits it a little bit more, and I want to give it a little bit more space to grow in. So put my little. All right, so just put in a layer of soil, bottom there. Alright, so I've just put in a bit of a layer of soil in there for now, and just going to position this in here. Just using a chopstick for this and making sure that the soil gets all in and around those roots, just so there aren't too many big air pockets in there. Now I could put a layer of moss on top of this, which would help with retaining moisture in the soil, but also help with, well, just makes it look a little bit nicer. I'm not going to bother with this plant now. It should, the moss will naturally grow on top anyway with time, if I do water it properly and consistently. So yeah, I'll just let that grow in naturally. Okay, so there's quite a nice bit of movement in the trunk from this angle. That could definitely be the front there, but I've also, the problem with that angle is that the trunk really moves away from you, so it makes it appear a lot less kind of imposing. So I almost feel like that there is a bit of a better front, but it doesn't actually, because the trunk kind of, main trunk moves towards you a lot more, but you can't really see as much of the movement, and that could almost be a good front too. So yeah, well, I'm going to go with this as being the front for now, just because you really see a lot more of the movement in the trunk. It looks a lot more interesting. I might keep this back branch eventually. Ultimately I've kind of kept it there for now, just to see how it goes. Yeah, especially if it comes back in towards the viewer more, then it'll probably work well as the main trunk and kind of face the viewer a little bit more as the front, but alternatively I can use, in the future I can probably use one of these two trunks as the main trunk, but we'll see how it goes. I'll water this bonsai now. So here's my finished Feijoa bonsai. But yeah, look, I hope you have enjoyed this video. Leave a like if you have, subscribe to the channel if you're after more content such as this, and leave a comment if there's something you particularly liked about this video, or if there's something you'd like me to cover in a future video. But look, overall, thanks for your time today. Enjoy. I'll give you an update on this. As I develop, I'll be doing a range of different videos on a range of the different plants that I do have in various stages of pre-bonsai and semi-bonsai and some larger bonsai, but I'll give you an update later on just to let you know how it goes, because there really isn't that much information out there online to really indicate on what's the appropriate way to go with Feijoa bonsai. Obviously this is growing in Australia too, so if you are looking at Feijoa bonsai and you are growing your bonsai in a different area, then there's going to be different considerations you're going to have to take into account. And look, if you're in a really cold climate, then obviously your Feijoa is going to need a lot more specific care and treatment than it is going to in Queensland, so take that into account as well.